From the moment Dean Ambrose arrived on the main roster as part of the Shield, he carried an aura of unpredictability that instantly set him apart. His promo work, his unhinged energy, and his ability to connect with the audience suggested he had all the tools necessary to become one of WWE's biggest stars. Yet, despite moments of triumph, WWE never fully capitalized on what made him special. Instead, he became a victim of the company's flawed creative direction, and the frustrating way in which they constrained his character ultimately led to his departure. Subscribe so we can chat together more. One of the most significant problems with how WWE handled Ambrose was their failure to evolve his character beyond certain surface-level traits. While Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns were given the opportunity to transform and grow as main event players, Ambrose was often pigeonholed as the wacky, comedic lunatic who never fully realized his potential. WWE leaned too heavily on comedy with his character, forcing him into skits that undercut his credibility. Whether it was pulling hot dog carts to the ring, wearing a gas mask, or being portrayed as someone who was afraid of germs, these moments diminished the seriousness of his persona. The problem wasn't that he had humor in his character. Plenty of top stars have had comedic moments. It was that WWE made it the defining trait of his presentation, rather than allowing him to be the cunning and dangerous brawler that he had proven himself to be in his independent wrestling days. Another major flaw in WWE's handling of Ambrose was the way they positioned him in the hierarchy. When the Shield broke up, Rollins was immediately pushed as a top heel, aligned with the authority, while Reigns was primed to be the next top babyface of the company. Ambrose, despite being arguably the most naturally over with the audience at the time, was treated as an afterthought. His feuds, while entertaining, often lacked the sense of importance that Rollins and Reigns' storylines had. He was given makeshift rivalries that felt more like placeholders rather than meaningful narratives that could elevate him. Even when he challenged for major championships, there was always a feeling that he was simply there to fill a spot, rather than being seriously considered as the face of the company. The booking decisions surrounding Ambrose's WWE Championship run further illustrate how WWE failed to see him as a long-term main eventer. When he finally won the title at Money in the Bank 2016, cashing in on Rollins the same night, it was a huge moment. However, WWE's commitment to him as champion felt half-hearted at best. He was booked to defend the title in a triple threat match against Reigns and Rollins at Battleground, a match that felt more like a showcase for the Shield's history than a true elevation of Ambrose. After that, he was quickly shifted into a feud with Dolph Ziggler for SummerSlam, a rivalry that felt underwhelming and lacked the gravitas a new champion needed. His reign ended abruptly when he lost the title to AJ Styles at Backlash, signaling that WWE had no long-term plans for him at the top. Instead of building on his momentum, he was shuffled down the card, back into mid-card feuds that made it clear WWE didn't view him as a top-tier guy. One of the biggest creative missteps WWE made with Ambrose was during his highly anticipated feud with Brock Lesnar, leading into WrestleMania 32. This was a chance to showcase his resilience, his unpredictability, and his willingness to go to extreme lengths to win. However, the match itself was a complete letdown, with Lesnar barely selling for Ambrose, and no real memorable spots that highlighted Ambrose's hardcore wrestling background. According to Ambrose himself, he had plenty of ideas to make the match more compelling, but Lesnar wasn't interested in putting in the effort. Instead of using this match to elevate Ambrose as a gritty, never-say-die fighter, WWE booked him to be completely steamrolled, making the entire feud feel pointless. The way WWE turned Ambrose heel in 2018 following Roman Reigns' leukemia announcement was another example of their failure to understand his character. While the idea of Ambrose betraying Seth Rollins on the same night that Reigns made his heartbreaking announcement had the potential to be a shocking and emotional moment, WWE completely botched the execution. Rather than allowing Ambrose to be a vicious, cold-blooded villain, they gave him a cartoonish presentation that involved long-winded promos, bizarre motivations, and even a storyline about him getting vaccinated to avoid filthy fans. Instead of being an intense and dangerous heel, he was a joke. It was no surprise that this was one of the last major storylines he had before deciding to leave the company. Another major frustration with WWE's treatment of Ambrose was how they failed to appreciate his strengths as a performer. He was one of the best talkers in the company, capable of delivering passionate, compelling promos. However, WWE constantly scripted him in ways that didn't suit his natural style. He was often given material that felt forced and unnatural, removing the organic quality that made him such a beloved character in the first place. In contrast, once he left WWE and became Jon Moxley in AEW, he immediately demonstrated what he was truly capable of with unscripted, raw promos that felt far more genuine than anything he had been allowed to do in WWE. WWE also failed to utilize Ambrose's strengths as an in-ring performer. While he was known for his unorthodox, brawling style, WWE rarely put him in matches that played to his strengths. He thrived in environments where he could embrace his chaotic nature, yet WWE often placed him in formulaic matches that didn't allow him to stand out. In contrast, once he joined AEW and started working in New Japan Pro Wrestling, he was finally able to have the kinds of brutal, hard-hitting matches that fit his persona. The way WWE handled Ambrose's departure further illustrated their lack of appreciation for him. Unlike other top stars who left the company, he wasn't given a major send-off or a farewell moment that acknowledged his contributions. Instead, he was quietly written off television, and WWE barely acknowledged his exit. This was a stark contrast to how they treated other departing superstars, reinforcing the idea that they never truly saw him as a major player. One of the primary reasons why Jon Moxley has been more successful than Dean Ambrose is the level of creative control he now possesses. While in WWE, Ambrose was often at the mercy of scripted promos and storylines that did not always align with his strengths. His ability to deliver impassioned, intense, and gritty promos was frequently undercut by the comedic or exaggerated segments he was given. These segments, at times, made him appear as a caricature rather than a legitimate threat or top-tier competitor. Conversely, as Jon Moxley, he has been given the freedom to speak in his own voice, crafting promos that resonate with fans on a deeper level. The authenticity he brings to the table has been a game changer, allowing him to connect with audiences in a way that Ambrose never fully could. Another factor that contributed to the success of Jon Moxley over Dean Ambrose is the in-ring style he has been able to adopt. While in WWE, Ambrose's matches were often structured in a way that did not fully showcase his abilities. He was pigeonholed into a brawling style that, while effective, lacked the edge and intensity he was capable of. In AEW and other promotions, Moxley has been able to embrace a more violent, hardcore approach that better suits his persona. This shift has allowed him to stand out in an era where technical wrestling is often emphasized, proving that there is still a place for the raw, unrelenting style he brings to the table. His ability to engage in brutal, physically demanding matches without losing his storytelling ability has set him apart from his peers. The storytelling in his matches has also seen a significant improvement since becoming Jon Moxley. WWE's style of booking often placed Ambrose in feuds that lacked long-term direction or meaningful stakes. His character was often used as comic relief or as someone who took part in stories that never quite lived up to their potential. As Moxley, however, he has been involved in compelling, deeply personal rivalries that have showcased his strengths as a storyteller. His feuds with the likes of Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and others have demonstrated his ability to elevate a storyline, making it feel authentic and deeply rooted in character motivation rather than arbitrary booking decisions. Another critical aspect of his success as Jon Moxley has been his ability to work in multiple promotions. While WWE keeps its talent locked into exclusive contracts, Moxley has been able to appear in New Japan Pro Wrestling, GCW, and other independent promotions while still being a top guy in AEW. This freedom has allowed him to diversify his matches and expand his audience, giving him opportunities to show different facets of his persona. His ability to adapt to different environments and still remain true to his character has only solidified his reputation as a world-class performer. Ultimately, Ambrose's time in WWE was a case of wasted potential. He had all the attributes necessary to be one of the company's biggest stars, but WWE's flawed creative system and their unwillingness to fully invest in him led to frustration and eventually his departure. His success outside WWE as Jon Moxley only proves what many fans had suspected all along. He was capable of so much more than WWE ever allowed him to be. His story serves as a cautionary tale of what happens when a company fails to recognize and nurture the talent they have, instead forcing them into a mold that doesn't suit them. WWE may have failed Dean Ambrose, but Jon Moxley proved he didn't need them to succeed.